I knew, for instance, that influencer content, um, not just UGC, but like really people that are good behind the camera or the phone and that have a way of like attracting attention, getting people to and engage in content, that works. It's really about, especially in paid social creative hits, a lot of the creatives you try, it's just not going to work. And it's only the small percentage of creatives. Like everything is the Pareto principle everywhere, all the time. So too with creatives and in scaling UA. So we when I came in, I tested, some creatives that they had in the account already. We did contracts with influencers, and I saw that a couple of them had really good um, virality scale. And so that was that early signal, like, okay, there's something here. And what if we chuck that into advertising and we see how that goes? And, we tried a few of them. Some of them didn't work. And then we kept trying and I kept looking for those hits, the things that like within a day, you see that Meta is starting to scale this up and it loves it. And you're getting great CPIs, great CTRs, great cost per trials. And you can see that like this is really strong performance. So then I just started opening up the budgets and really expanding out the audience targeting and really like getting more surface area for this strong creative to get out there.
My name is Jacob Rushvin, CEO and founder of Botsy. Today on the Price Power Podcast, we're talking with Gabe Kwakyi. Gabe has been a leader in the mobile marketing world for years. He founded an agency called Incipia. He co-authored the Advanced App Store Optimization Handbook, worked with massive brands including Walmart, Coinbase, Duolingo, and more, and is now CEO of the #1 sign language app in the world, Lingvano. We talk about his journey to CEO of Lingvano, the importance of creative hits, experiment wins, how to scale meta campaigns, and more. Let's dive in.
Hey, Gabe. How's it going? Welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. It's good to be here. I'm just hanging out here in Vienna and enjoying the weather here and having some tea in the afternoon.
Awesome. Well, yeah, again, really appreciate joining. Maybe you give a little quick background on yourself for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So, hey everyone, I've been in digital marketing since 2012 and mobile apps and marketing since about 2015 or so. I co-founded an ad agency called Incipia, and at that time also co-wrote the Advanced ASL book with Moritz Stan from Feature. That was a great time. I don't know how the heck we wrote a book while also running and scaling agencies. And anyway, uh, a little through that experience, I started to actually get burned out. So my co-founder and I decided to shut down the agency. I went and spent a little bit of time at Moritz's agency, and then I career pivoted and trained to be a life and career coach, and then career pivoted again when I moved out to Austria to move in with my girlfriend in Vienna. And there I came back to marketing. I got a job as a marketer at this sign language learning app called Lingvano. And about a year in or so, then I was also asked to step in to lead the company as CEO. So that's been fun. I've been CEO of Lingvano, learning and teaching sign languages for the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's so cool. Lingvano is such a cool product. Quite an interesting journey.
Yeah.
Pivoting one way, pivoting back. I remember early on when Apple search ads were first released,
Oh.
you were writing content for Incipia, and like essentially you taught me how to run Apple search ads. Like your content was stellar there, and I think that's when I first like. I don't know if I had knew Incipia before that, but I think I came across you then, and so I think that's when I first kind of heard your name, and so it's like awesome to kind of have you on the podcast today after all that. One of
Yeah.
the early leaders in mobile growth.
Yeah, well, it was a fun time, and yeah, it was everyone sharing everything, just experimenting and nerding out on that. Now I'm doing the same thing with AI now, so it's another frontier to get into. Of course, everyone knows about AI, and that's not like a thing secret or interesting. But yeah, I've been putting together this AI stack, and it throws back to the ASO stack that we did years ago. So anyway, I'm back to the nerding out and the content production again. So it's good to be here.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. We'll have to dive into the AI stack a little bit. I'm
Yes.
really curious to hear more about that. Yeah, I guess. Do you want to start like also just share a little bit about Lingvano?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. Lingvano, I'm a non-founder CEO. So again, I joined the company 2 years ago, became CEO a year and a half ago. But Lingvano it's an Austrian company, and we were started in 2018 by the co-founders Nico and Matthias, who were doing their civil service in Austria. So you have to volunteer or go do military service for a little bit after high school. And they were working with deaf patients, and they realized there wasn't an easy way to learn sign languages online. So they decided to co-found Lingvano and build the course themselves. And yeah, over the years, they started from Austrian Sign Language and a website. They went to an app. They added American Sign Language, British Sign Language. And so right there is an interesting fact that most people probably don't know. There's actually over 200 and maybe even over 300 different sign languages in the world. There's not just one. And so it's very interesting to learn. And they're also quite different. Like British Sign Language, you spell the alphabet with two hands. And American Sign Language, as well as Austrian Sign Language, you spell with one hand. So there's some interesting differences between all of them. And it's a lot of fun to learn. And we now have almost 4 million learners, mostly in the US. We're a team of about 27 or so people. There's there's a mix of hearing, hard of hearing, deaf colleagues on our team across the US and Europe, and it's super fun. Our learners love learning with us as well. We actually have more than half of the people that are learning with us that just have a general interest. Some of them don't even know anyone who's deaf or who signs. But it's great to teach them more about not just sign languages, but deaf culture and deaf people as well. So it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've always found in my career when I'm working on products that actually help people, all the work is so much more fulfilling. Everything gets a little easier just when you hear reviews and hear feedback from people that it's like, you know, learning sign language, but also potentially like opening up communication with children or parents that they couldn't speak with before. And so it's pretty cool. And yeah, like I learned about that. Yeah, every country has different sign language. It makes sense, right? Every country in the world speaks a different language. I think as Americans, we go, oh, sign language is the same everywhere. It's like,
Yeah,
no, we have to, it makes sense. It's different. So that's awesome. And
exactly.
so, you kind of touched upon this in your little intro. You joined Lingvano and now you're CEO.
And
How does someone join a company and then get promoted to CEO?
uh, well, it wasn't something that I planned from the start. It was more of a serendipitous thing. I suppose that's how a lot of my life has worked. I met my girlfriend serendipitously in the streets of New York, or the subways rather. So that's a story for a different time. But yeah, I joined and I moved to Austria. I was looking for a place to actually just freelance because we were going to go travel Asia for a summer. And then I was freelancing and really helped a lot of the pieces that helped Lingvano to really scale up a lot in a year. We went from 1 million learners a year and a half ago um, to about almost 4 million now. So a lot of that growth came from one, just a great product, a great course and content that was there before I came, that everybody had built out before, the product team, the learning community team. And um, then, there's actually influencers were one of the earliest ways that Lingvano really started to get traction. And so um, having I think like there's a saying out there of like one of the fastest ways to kill a bad product is to just shove money at it and marketing. But one of the things that's great about having a good product that people like, that has good conversion rates, good retention rates, that people leave good ratings about, is that it's once you find the right creatives, then you can really scale things out. So we have deaf teachers, we have deaf influencers and content creators. And so our old head of social and partnerships she had had like a lot of great influencers that I then came in and took that content and then realized, okay, we can run meta ads. We can scale things up on that side of things. And so we really opened that up. We had a TikTok afterwards. We opened up Google App campaigns more. And so a lot of a lot of what would happen was, like using the pieces that were already there and taking the last mile excellence to make them work and scale. And so then I joined full time, started to build out a growth team as head of growth, and then the co-founders um, actually, I think, like, credit to them, they realized that their skills and what they enjoyed doing was more of the early stage, so the last 7 years at that point. And so they realized that they thought it was time for them to actually look to find different leadership that's what had experience in managing. This was actually their first or almost first thing out of college, and so they didn't have previous experience scaling it out, and it worked. But at the point that we were at then, they realized, okay, Lingvano probably needs new leadership, new direction. And so we built out a leadership team of heads. And I was one of those. And then they said, okay, you've, been CEO before. You also led a team, with other places. You know how to like build and scale products and also companies. And so we did a little kind of like uh, launch period where I started to take over the reins, and then we had a transition period, and then things have been great so far. But it was right experience, skill set, right time, serendipitous time, rather, and also just a reflection on what does the business and the company need at this point, and a willingness to change.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know it's been a couple of years now, but congrats again on being CEO. It's very cool to see. I was very excited when I saw that little LinkedIn announcement on my feed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and yeah, I think so much of we can look back at our careers and go, oh yeah, that happened because I did this and this, but it's all sometimes coincidence, serendipity, sometimes just being open to new opportunities and kind of keeping your eyes open to kind of what's out there. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. You you
Really.
you touched upon one point, that they they had good foundations for the product, but also that they had a lot of great, maybe it was organic influencer marketing content, like available. So I think this is true in a lot of companies that there's the seeds for great growth are there, but sometimes we don't know what those are. Like when you came in, how did you know that was the right strategy? How did you know, like, did you have any early signals that like that influencer content that existed was going to be valuable, or kind of what? Did you just kind of take a bet and it worked out? Yeah, how
Yeah.
did you think about that?
Yeah. Um, I was actually having a conversation before this with a developer actually that you introduced me to, who, super smart, built something that has a great level of traction right now. But he was saying, he was like, he was just kind of peppering me with questions, and I loved it. We were having this discussion and I lost track of time and I had to go to another meeting. But he was like, sorry, I'm asking so many questions, but like this is the first time I get a chance to just like, pick someone's brain and growth that like has seen things, that have tried things out. And I was telling him all about, what I learned at Lingvano and before. But to your question, I was able to recognize which pieces were there that were important, and what to try, and where to have confidence, and what to look for, because I had run and scaled campaigns with Coinbase, with Walmart, with People Fund, just like all these other companies back in the day. And so I knew, for instance, that influencer content, um, not just UGC, but like really people that are good behind the camera or the phone, and that have a way of like attracting attention and getting people to like and engage in content, that worked. And that we needed to find it's really about, especially in paid social, creative hits. A lot of the creatives you try, it's just not going to work. And it's only the small percentage of creatives. Like everything is the Pareto principle everywhere, all the time. So too with creatives and scaling UA. So we when I came in, I tested, some creatives that they had in the account already. We tried making some, like some static ads, some graphic design ads, some motion graphics. I tried making a few videos myself. We had some of our teachers who had videos, and those were like one of the earliest hits. One of our teachers who was doing the colors in uh, American Sign Language. Um, but then I saw that the influencer videos actually wasn't fully organic, or it wasn't, most of it wasn't organic. We did contracts with influencers, and I saw that a couple of them had really good um, virality scale. And so that was that early signal, like, okay, there's something here. And what if we chuck that into advertising and we see how that goes? And we tried a few of them. Some of them didn't work. And then we kept trying, and I kept looking for those hits, the things that like within a day, you see that Meta is starting to scale this up and it loves it. And you're getting great CPIs, great CTRs, great cost per trials. And you can see that like this is really strong performance. So then I just started opening up the budgets and really expanding out the audience targeting and really like getting more surface area for this strong creative to get out there. And on the side, we started up a pipeline where we started to work with more and more creators and pull in more influencers. And so constant testing was important. But um, yeah, it was realizing that creative hits what drive paid social. That there were some promising creatives in the mix overall that hadn't been deployed from Instagram organic to Instagram advertising, and to just, when it started to work, have the guts to 10x the budget. And the co-founders as well, like I checked in with them, props to them. I'm like, okay, this is the time to press, the budget. When it's working, go all in. So can I raise the budgets, 10x in like a short period of time? Do we have the cash flows to support this? And they said, yep, we're good. So then go in. And that's another thing, like it's temporary. Creative hits are temporary, and you get this excellent performance period, but then it always at some point saturates and comes down. So you have to learn how to like navigate these periods where you have it, press your advantage, and when you don't have it and you get into a drought, pull back, realize that you've just got to work to get another hit, and you're gonna feel like a failure. You're gonna feel like shit, like why isn't it working? Nothing's working. Our performance is so bad. But that's the dynamics of modern paid social. You just got to get a strong enough hit that it works. So
Yeah, that's amazing insight. I think a lot of people find that valuable to just understand that the mindsets, but also looking for those early gems. And so like on that organic social post, was it you looking at a post going, this is pretty good, I like this, or was it like, hey, this got a lot of like people are sharing this and commenting, like seeing those early signs that kind of clued you in there?
yeah, it was the engagement. It
Yeah.
was one just like views. Actually, it was mostly views. My view on I don't know if they're controversial. Okay, using the search ad CPA goal, or now whatever it's called, CPA cap, is a controversial thing that I do to this day. Always use the CPA goal, even on your exact match campaigns. Anyway, rant over. Another one is like when it comes to creative hits, I just look for spend. I just look for scale, because you're optimizing towards performance. So you're not going to let a creative run away and spend a lot of money if it's bad performance, because you're going to go out of business doing that. So yes, look for CTR. Yes, look for CPI. Yes, maybe look at CPMs. Look at cost per CPAs. But really, like if a creative is scaling up, that's how we define hits. A hit level D is a 10,000 or more lifetime spend. A hit level C is a 25,000 or more lifetime spend. Hit level B is 100,000. Hit level A is 250,000. And hit level S, it's like the Japanese games, like SSS, super special. Like you got the top score. That's 1 million or more. And so then I looked over at the influencer videos that just had a lot of views, and most of them also had correspondingly a decent number of likes and engagement. But it was scale. Just I took inventory over all the different posts that we had done and picked a few out, and they most of them worked.
Yeah, and I think we have all these we're have these CPA goals and this, but at the end of the day, we're paying. It's always CPM, right? We're just paying for views, and we hope that things convert. And so I think that like it always gets lost in really sometimes when we're thinking about like spend there. So that makes sense. The other thing I wanted to ask, yeah, with those kind of creative wins and maybe creative lulls sometimes, how do you minimize the lulls? Do you have, and maybe this is more kind of technical campaign setup, do you typically use a champion ad campaign, ad group where 75% of the budget goes there and you're constantly trying to test and get a new potential champion? And then how do you integrate that potentially new winner into the high performing ad set without actually maybe harming your ad spend to that champion creative? And then how do you deal with all the like, sorry, I'm throwing a few questions at
Yeah.
once to you, but then how do you deal with the just meta algorithm of like you put this in the top performing ad set with most of the budget or ad group, and then like does it not get reach? Or I think there's so many nuances of how you kind of find those new creative hits and then integrate them into your top performing top spenders.
Yeah, I'll pick the layers apart here.
Yep.
Starting with, so one, I don't have a clear strategy that like cleanly manages hit transition to hit. Like that's actually
Yeah.
something right now our growth lead and I were discussing, like how do we introduce a new creative that seems like it has potential into the mix where a current favorite from Meta, a creative hit, is still hogging the budget, but it's in the decline. We know it's saturating. So how do you do this Indiana Jones kind of thing? We're still trying to figure it out. But to start, like what happens in a creative lull period, what I've found, and this is again going back to like before SKAd network, but still after SKAd network, you just have to keep going until you have a strong creative hit. I've found that there is nothing you can do to make performance better if you do not have a strong creative hit. That's just the reality right now. It's not, the same as search, but when it comes to paid social, when it comes to these like social, viral, organic, or social, like these platforms are predicated on virality. So you'll be beating your head against the wall, trying to figure out where's the next creative, and our old one is getting worse and worse. Um, but you'll still run your old hits. Like actually, we have one hit that's still more or less running 2.5 years later. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still the best out of the bunch if we don't have a new hit. So hoping that a new creative that like looks okay in testing is gonna start spending, I found that it doesn't happen. It's just your hits are always going to be driving the majority of spend, even if they're old. So in the period of lull, you can try to reactivate old hits that you maybe paused at one point. You can do iterations, especially hook swaps on the creatives to extend the lifetime of a hit. But eventually they're all going to saturate. And so you go and work with those creators, those sources that produce the hits. Like we call them our hit makers. And we keep working with those that are hit makers. You keep, marketing, you keep doing a thing until it exhausts and it stops working. Then you go on to something else. And when it comes to the testing, so we have a testing campaign that's always on. We're putting the new creatives into it, and we just let them fight it out for the most part. It's not like there's a totally specific scientific formula. It's just like you dump them in, you try to you pause them after 100, 150 in spend, you evaluate performance. If it's good enough, you flip them into the maybe scaling or core campaign. At that point, it can be tricky where they go after testing. But if a creative doesn't spend, kill it, move on. You don't have to try to force creative to every or spend to every single creative. The hits will reveal themselves 90% of the time. So unless you feel really confident about a new creative that's coming in and it's not getting spent, you might restart it, put it in a separate ad set, but don't worry too much about that. Then when you get a hit, then we've tried a few things like if you have an old hit that's still running, it is hard. If you put it in the same ad set, the old hit is the alpha, and it's not going to allow any spend to go to the new one, even if it's saturated. So what happens then? We've tried. Um, we actually were working with an agency for a little bit, Headlight, and they brought this like scaling campaign. There was an intermediary. So you graduated from the creative testing, you move it to scaling, and you use separate ad sets to like force spend to the new ones. You try to get it to like 1,000 in spend, and then try hope at that point that Meta realizes, oh, this is actually pretty good, and then it starts to pick it up more. Then you could put it in the core campaign, but it still doesn't work well most of the time. So we're thinking like, okay, maybe there's a core campaign where there's a one ad set that has the core hit in it. You set up another one, and they're both in core, and yeah, you like use ad set level budget and maybe like over time decrease the budget of the hits and increase the budget of the newcomer, assuming the performance continues to look good. One thing that we don't know is like, I'd rather not, I don't know, it's up to like style and how you do it, but I'd rather not like turn off a hit and turn on the new one. But sometimes maybe that is it. You just have to do that for, a week or two and just try to force it to have a chance. And if it doesn't, if performance gets way worse, okay, maybe you go back, you try something else. But um, yeah, don't have clear answers on that. iOS, makes it harder because you have the delay of performance. You don't have the true ad level um, attribution. I guess Meta, AEM, they have their own like estimations for that, so it's better than it used to be. But yeah, it's tough still.
Yeah, I think one like amazing tactical insights on how you kind of think about these things. So I appreciate you sharing those. I think the major insight also is that there aren't hard and fast rules, right? Uh, um, you have to experiment and iterate and not like this happens, do this. It's a science, but there's also a good bit of art
Yeah,
in it all. Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm not really on the I focus more on kind of product growth, monetization, retention. So like learning kind of all of the acquisition insights is really interesting to me. I'm sure other people love that too.
yeah.
Cool. Um, all right. So I wanted to also just ask like broadly, I think it seems like paid acquisition, is probably driving a lot of the growth at Lingvano. Are there other key initiatives that you're working on right now that are driving growth, within paid acquisition or kind of more broadly?
Yeah, paid paid marketing is still the lion's share of our growth. But we we have been working a lot on like growth experiments. So that's like the onboarding, the monetization side of things, and that we've seen some great improvements there. So that's like an ongoing swim lane, I guess, of work. And we're also continuing to experiment with core product. Our head of product, Elena, is really trying to think like strategically about product. Like, what are the bets that we want to take? How do we continue improving and expanding on the user experience and adding new features and taking bets and trying things where we don't know if it's going to work in the end or not, but not only relying on page UA and growth experimentation, as there's saturation points to those where at a certain point you can't squeeze anything else out when you're hyper efficient. Of course, always be testing, but don't only be relying on one or another pillar. Um, and we're also trying new kinds of like products and offerings. So our core offering is a subscription to our course in the app or the website. But we're also exploring live learning events where people can get on a Zoom call, and there's a deaf instructor or a mentor who will like guide assigned practice. So that's something we're trying as well. We're revamping our social organic strategy. Um, we're working on building a learning community in Facebook groups. We're doing some continuing to do some like partnerships here or there. Um, but yeah, and there's some other interesting things in the works here, in the beta side of things, and we'll see where they go before we share too much. But trying not to be too reliant on one or another lever of growth.
Yep, that makes sense. I think once you reach a certain level of scale, there's diminishing returns. You've got to spread out a little more to kind of keep on growing there. Are those? I'm assuming those kind of live um, training or teaching programs are like a higher price point.
Yeah, yeah. We're we're experimenting right now. It's like a one-time purchase actually for now.
Mhm.
But we're trying like, okay, you get one free and then you can try another one, or maybe there's a subscription at some point, or maybe we bake it all into like one different price point subscription where you get, the core course and live learning events and other things. So yeah, let's see where the experimentation is definitely where we're at with that one.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Something that's become very, very popular and maybe you all had a web platform for a while. But how are you guys uh using much kind of web to app conversion funnels? Remind me, do you have both web and mobile platforms, like in terms of products?
Yeah, we're a React Native app, and so we have um, web app or web iOS Android, and um, yeah, we're actually trying to set up some tests and see whether it makes sense for us to. I mean, our hope is yes, we can if we push more folks to the from app to web onboarding or and payment flows, that's oops going to be the optimal thing for us. Because our of course it's very shiny the share of revenue, net revenue that you get from web payment providers. But we also see we're setting up some like doing the research still and setting up some tests, but we also see that it's not as it's only iOS US, for instance, and when you send people out of the store, you have drop off. Um, you can't use like an in-app web modal, like pop-up modal with Apple Pay, for instance. You have to send them out of the app, and so it sounds shiny, it is shiny, but there's the conversion rate gets cut down by these points of friction that still get introduced. So we want to move in that direction. Um, but we've also seen other people experimenting, and they said, or some folks have identified, like, well, it's kind of a net. It's not a grand slam to do that. But again, always be testing, try things out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my my hypotheses for kind of what app to web conversion will look like in the future is that certain user bases, certain segments, and certain use cases will work well.
Mm,
Where I think that I've heard that sometimes potentially older audiences can convert better because they're um, less frustrated with maybe digital friction, where younger audiences go, where are you sending me? Where older audiences maybe less attention to that kind of like, or understand less the difference between the app and the web experience.
that's a good point.
And so I think um, that will probably, depending on your audience, depending on your user base, that certain segments you may learn convert well, and you'll take advantage of that. I also think that potentially promotions, where you're offering a discount. Because of that discount, users have extra motivation, and that extra motivation kind of overrides that friction uh, um, from that experience, sending them out to web, and they're still excited. Oh, well, I get a discount. That's fine. You'd have a greater revenue share, which is even more important when you're discounting, right? To kind of take home more of that revenue. And so I think that, like, long term, that's probably what we'll see. And maybe some apps will have a user base that it really makes sense for, that they send everybody. but I think and generally it's probably a later term strategy where, for most apps, if you're under 1 million and you're paying 15% to Apple, don't even bother, right? Like you you really likely will see a lower conversion rate. The math is that is the conversion rate drop low enough that the increased take home revenue makes up for it. And so when you're at 30%, yeah, it can start to make sense, right? But again, it's probably not just slap it in your app and apply it broadly across the board. And so I think who knows how long, maybe this will never come true, but like we'll start to learn which use cases it starts to really make sense for. And so
Yeah.
that's my prediction. Putting on recording it, well, you can hold me to it in a year just to see what actually happens.
Well, who knows also the whole space changes so fast, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
also judge
so
rulings. It's like,
right.
Google came out and said, okay, you can do whatever you want. And then a judge was like, wait, not so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so you're testing out app to web. We'll see what happens there. And so do you send paid traffic for web to app too to start on web conversion funnels? Like do you have web subscriptions where people start on web as well right now?
We do. It's a very small share of
Okay.
overall new users acquired. Um, and before we started to kind of slow down on app advertising scale and need to then look for other areas to improve efficiency, web wasn't even a consideration. And before like all of this happened with web payment flow possibilities. And so, we don't have a web trial, for instance. There's some other areas where we could like improve the web conversion rate. But right now it's much lower than the app flow. And so, we've tried Meta web campaigns. We have some Google web campaigns running, but it until we make some further improvements, it it doesn't make sense to shift a meaningful amount of budget into that from app.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Um, and so, you've been working in paid UA for years and years. Like for someone just getting started, like maybe they have you know, a newer app. They have some traction. They have some organic traction. Maybe they're doing a little bit of paid, but for someone really getting started with paid acquisition for your app, do you have any like high level guidance, tips, where to start, how to think about things?
Mm. Well, one is definitely just experimenting, trying things out. Um, Really like but being realistic about which channels to focus on. Okay, if you're an Android app, Google app campaigns. They're annoying. They suck because you can't target keywords. You have all these limitations. You can't actually control the ads. Yeah, but you get ads in the Play Store. That's valuable. Apple Search Ads campaigns, if you're on iOS, for sure. Those are going to be pretty easy to learn. Um, and then Meta, you know, maybe TikTok if in your niche it really makes sense, but start with Meta. And Meta's like, for anyone who's spending at scale, like Meta's 50 to 90% of your spend. So just get really good at Meta. Like go on LinkedIn, just consume all this content from people that are writing about Meta tips and tricks and different things, and start trying them out yourself. And um, explore with AI. Personally, I haven't been able to. We haven't been able to make. It's also different for us. Like you, we can't trust, for instance, ChatGPT to create a video of people signing. Um, that doesn't work for us, or for our brand or our customers. But maybe try some AI ads, runway, see what you get. But also creators and influencers, micro influencers, um, go out there and try to find some people that you think could represent your product well, and try influencer campaigns with them, as well as try using their content in Meta, and see how that goes. Um, And yeah, in addition to like consuming content, just talk to people, send people up like LinkedIn messages, just randomly reach out to people, go to events, meetups, conferences. Like still, like you're referencing when I was writing at Incipia, like people like to share, their tips and tricks, and especially with folks coming up in the industry, it's great. It's fun for both sides, to knowledge exchange, and then once you get to a certain point, you'll exchange knowledge with folks coming up too. So
Yeah, that's something I love about the mobile app industry of how open and kind of like uh, open to people about sharing and supporting and helping. It's a good industry, relatively.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah. Um, cool. So I also want to maybe pivoting a little bit. I wanted to ask you about your AI stack for startups.
yeah, yeah,
I saw you putting that together, and I know this is kind of the stack element is a nod to Andy Carvel and Moritz with the mobile growth stack and ASO stack.
yeah,
Yeah, can you tell me more about like why'd you want to do that, and
yeah.
with everything else you got going on, and like how you constructed and organized all that?
Yeah, this came from pure curiosity, and like what ended up why I was writing all these blog posts, and why Moritz and I wrote a book and came up with the ASO stack was like we just want to try to conceptual understand these concepts and scaffold and organize them in a way that it's like, okay, for this for keyword optimization, here's the stuff that you're doing. For conversion rate optimization, here's the stuff you're doing. Other tools and techniques, analytics, okay. So for me, it's just like I like I'm trying to wade into the tsunami of AI concepts and things that I'm feeling like this tall again, which is cool but overwhelming at the same time. And so for me, I was just like, I've had I don't know how many conversations with Gemini and Grok and Claude and ChatGPT, trying to just understand what's the landscape. AI is just so incredibly broad, and so just at least focusing on generative large language model AI, the chat side of things, or the or image, creation, or that, and I just tried to ask like, what are the concepts that I need to know about in order to operate in the space and know how chatbots work? How do they break down? How do you tune them? If you were to bring them into your product, what do you need to learn about? So like, okay, prompt. That's the simplest thing, for using AI as a product. You tell it, or I guess even as a user, you prompt it or you ask it something. But then there's top K. So like, which number of responses should it be responding to you with? What are some hallucinations? I have now at this point 3 stacks, and they're again just like scaffolds or like ways to organize your learning journey. So okay, in prompting, you start with prompt design and engineering libraries, and then you look at prompt templates and variable injection, and then system. What's the difference between a system prompt and assistant, a session prompt? And so it's just like helping people to like figure out where to start learning, and it's organized into like level zero, learning level zero, one, two, three, four, and four is like cutting edge. Like, don't worry about that for now. But yeah, I just did it as a weekend project to help me organize how I'm learning, and felt like sharing it too. And hopefully it helps someone else out there.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think teaching is often the best way of learning yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
learning something enough so you can teach somebody else. And that's kind of how I started writing my newsletter, retention blog, and like this was all the stuff I was already doing. I was like
Yeah.
looking at these apps, learning what they're doing, analyzing onboarding flows, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I can bring this to other people as well, and that helped cement my knowledge. So it sounds like that's kind of a similar process to what you're doing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Any from doing that, any like counterintuitive learnings you had while putting this together? Anything that people maybe be surprised about? Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely still I put this together, but it doesn't mean I'm by any means an expert. This is me
Okay.
helping me to go from beginner learner to intermediate learner. It's my wish list of concepts I want to learn. But one thing that has been interesting and kind of counterintuitive is if you're a technical kind of mind or analytical mind, when you do the prompt, you might want to break things down into like bullets and sections and say, okay, here, you can do this and do this. And you instruct the AI to respond and operate in a certain way. But actually, when you do that, you might find that instructions are being ignored. And even though you organized it all and you're like, all these things are important, how does it know which one is most important? When they conflict, when the guidance conflicts, like what happens then? Also, there's context windows. And I guess if it's in the prompt, it should all be within that kind of context window, but it's not all equal. It's kind of like, well, I don't know if it's exactly like, because the way this information goes in, it's embedded in a vector like space, and there's relevance considerations, and what is it like semantic like closeness in the vector spaces. So I was going to use the example of SEO. The H1 tag is more important than the H2 tag. It's more important than the H3 tag, but it's not, I don't think, the same in prompting. So what you put at the top isn't necessarily what's always most relevant. It depends on the semantic relevance to the user's query. So it's kind of counterintuitive because you want to give it explicit instructions to do or not do, but then either it misses instructions or it becomes robotic and it doesn't it loses its creativity. And there's even for instance, a thing called a catastrophic forgetting, where you try to teach it something new and it learns that thing and it forgets something that was really important before. So it's black boxy. It's like frustrating. It's interesting because it's different every time. Consistency, even if you're using temperature that says like no create like always do the same thing every time, it will still be a little bit different each time. So it's very much an art. I'd say more than a science at this point of the perfect prompt. And even if you get it right today, tomorrow it might not be working anymore. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's yeah, I've had tons of fun exploring. I think it reminds me of kind of what you're talking about. Sometimes I'll if I have this long question, I'll break it up into ask one part, have it respond, then
Yeah.
follow up and break it up to make sure there's like no pieces missed. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into your stack more. It's there's so much to learn there.
Yeah.
It's not going to end. There's always going to be more and more.
Yep.
Um, yeah. Well, this was awesome, Gabe. I really appreciate you kind of sharing all this expert knowledge, and wishing you success and kind of the Lingvano growth journey, and always having a new creative winner on the horizon that's ready to scale. But yeah, anything else kind of you want to promote or have people go check out? We'll link your AI stack in
Oh, yeah.
the show notes so people can go find that. Yeah, anything else you want people to go check out?
No, if people want to connect with me in LinkedIn, that's cool. If you have a question or something, shoot me a message. I'm open for that. But right now, it's also helped me like with the AI stack. If there's a concept that I missed or I didn't share it right, like poke holes in that. Like I'm open for that. And also, if you want to learn a sign language, American Sign Language, it's fun. It's cool. Try Lingvano. Those I'd leave
Yeah.
it at that.
Yeah, Lingvano is an awesome app. It's very well done, very well designed, a great product. Go check it out. And then yeah, go give Gabe feedback on his AI stack. Cool. All right. Well, this is awesome. Again, really appreciate you coming on. Yeah, talk to you later.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. See ya.